You know, when most people hear CMMC Level 1, they see one thing, the number 17. 17 practices. And that, let's be honest, it just sounds like a simple checklist, right? Something you can just power through and move on. But that way of thinking is probably the single biggest reason companies end up failing their compliance audits. So today, we're going to go beyond that checklist and really dig into what CMMC Level 1 actually demands from your day-to-day operations.
Yeah, this quote right here really hits the nail on the head. The goal isn't to memorize 17 rules for a test. It's about building a culture, a habit of consistent, basic cybersecurity discipline. This isn't something you can just cram for. It's a measure of how your company actually operates every single day.
So let's break this down. On one side, you have the myth that this is all just a simple checklist, a one-and-done task that's all about buying the right software. But the reality? CMMC Level 1 is a test of your consistent, daily discipline. At the end of the day, it's not about what tech you have, it's about what your people do. All right, so here's our game plan. First, we're going to tackle that 17 practice misconception head on. Then, we'll organize those practices into two main areas, controlling who gets access and how you protect your actual systems. We'll even look at this whole thing through an auditor's eyes before we wrap up by showing you why this is truly the foundation of your entire security program. Okay, so let's jump right into that big misconception. And to really get why it's not just a to-do list, we first have to understand why these 17 practices exist in the first place. This isn't just random red tape. They have a very, very specific purpose. And that purpose is to protect this stuff, Federal Contract Information, or FCI. Look, if you have a government contract, you are handling FCI. It's that simple. It's any information about that contract that isn't meant for public eyes. And you better believe the government needs to know that this basic info is being kept safe.
So, here's the crucial point. Level 1 is the absolute floor. It's the minimum standard. It's all about establishing basic cyber hygiene. Think of it like this. It's like washing your hands in a hospital. These practices aren't optional suggestions. They are foundational for anyone touching FCI.
Now, let's shift gears to our first big group of practices. And they all revolve around a pretty simple question. Who gets the keys to your digital kingdom, and what are they even allowed to do once they get inside? It all breaks down into this really logical three-step process. First, you have to uniquely identify every single person on your system. That means no shared accounts. Step 2, you have to authenticate them. They've got to prove they are who they say they are, usually with a password. And third, once they're in, you limit their access to only the things they absolutely need to do their job, and nothing more. And here's a common blind spot, so listen up. This isn't just about your employees in the office. This discipline has to apply to everyone logging in from home and to any external systems you're connected to. Every single digital door needs a lock, period. Okay, so you've controlled who can get in. The next piece of the puzzle is actually protecting the systems themselves. And we're talking about both the digital and the physical space here. And this covers all the essentials you'd expect, right? You need malware protection to block the bad stuff. You've got to be constantly updating or patching your systems to close up security holes. You need to be monitoring everything for suspicious activity. And yeah, you also have to control physical things like USB drives and, of course, physically lock down your computers and servers. These are the guards on the wall. All right, so you understand the practices, that's great. But how does an auditor know you're actually doing them? This is the real litmus test. This is where theory gets a dose of reality. The key word, the magic word, is evidence. An auditor is hunting for verifiable proof, not just a policy you wrote down once, but real proof that a practice is alive and kicking in your daily operations. We're talking screenshots of your access controls, logs showing that your software patches worked, even the visitor sign-in sheet for your server room. They need to see it in action. Which leads us to a really important question. I mean, what if you have every intention of being secure? You bought the software, you told everyone the rules. Is that enough? And the answer is a clear, simple, and resounding no. Intent is not evidence. You just can't tell an auditor you're secure. You have to show them. Your daily actions, your logs, your procedures, that is your evidence. So let's bring it all together now. When you strip away all the jargon, you're left with a foundational truth about CMMC Level 1. It's about discipline over technology. We started with this number, 17. But I really hope by now you're seeing it differently. These 17 practices aren't just a list of things to do. There's 17 different ways to measure your organization's basic cybersecurity maturity and its discipline. And here's the long-term payoff. If you build this strong foundation of discipline right now, if you treat level 1 with the seriousness it deserves, guess what? Getting to the more complex level 2 later on becomes dramatically simpler. You're building the right habits from the very beginning. So we'll leave you with this final thought. Is your security built on a flimsy checklist, or is it truly built on a foundation of daily discipline? Because the answer to that question will ultimately decide whether you succeed with CMMC.